On October 14th, high on the exposed slopes of Dhaulagiri, Nadia Aniva found herself utterly alone. No oxygen, no Sherpa, and 300 meters of brutal ascent still ahead of her. The wind cut through her like a blade, and the thin air felt like poison in her lungs. The plan was simple: summit the 167-meter peak without any supplemental oxygen. She had started her climb with 2 fellow Russian mountaineers, but now, hours into this deadly ascent, they were nowhere in sight. Each was battling their own demons on this unforgiving mountain. The plan had been to regroup at Camp 2 at 6,880 meters, but for Nadia, it felt an impossible distance away. Ahead of her was a sheer, exposed face, the kind of slope where one wrong step could mean a sudden, irreversible plunge into oblivion. It was here that Nadia would meet her fate. Dhaulagiri, known as the White Mountain, stands ominously as the 7th tallest peak in the world, towering at 8,167 meters. It's not the technical difficulty that makes this climb deadly, but the merciless exposure. Climbers here are at the mercy of brutal winds and icy slopes. For Nadia Oliva, a 38-year-old Russian alpinist, this challenge was a call she couldn't resist. She had been scaling walls and conquering peaks her entire life, often choosing routes that no one else dared to. Her reputation as one of the most skilled climbers of her generation was well earned. But even for someone as experienced as Nadia, the game changes above 8,000 meters. Here, the mountains become a realm of thin air, hallucinations, and death. In 2019, Nadia's fearless spirit was on full display when she tackled the massive rock faces of the Bonsky region in Russia. Alongside 2 friends, she trekked through uncharted wilderness, scaling 3 towering big walls with nothing but her skill and nerve. No ropes for pulling her up, only for safety. It was the first time anyone had ever climbed these walls, and Nadia had done it with ease. Her climb in 2021 was equally bold when she and her team made the first ascent of a 818-meter granite spire they named Sharp Peak. The untouched needle of rock had captivated her when she first saw a photo, and after days of brutal climbing, they stood on its summit, victorious. But her crowning achievement came in 2022 on the unforgiving north face of Peak Korala. Nadia and her team spent 3 harrowing days scaling the sheer ice and rock. On the first day, they gained 700 meters vertically, setting up a tent that teetered on the edge of a cliff. The second day brought more treacherous climbing, with their tent barely anchored on a steep slope. By the third day, they had conquered another 450 meters, finally standing atop the untouched summit. The mountaineering community called it a masterpiece. Her talent and drive earned her a nomination for the Piolet d'Or, one of climbing's greatest honors. But even with all her accolades, the 8,000ers hold a danger that no award or achievement can shield you from. Before heading to Nepal for her Dhaulagiri expedition, Nadia couldn't contain her excitement. She posted on Facebook, "Pinch me, I'm climbing the octopus. Today we leave for Pokhara, and tomorrow we fly to base camp. Can't wait for the new heights." In Nepal, Nadia teamed up with 2 other Russian climbers, Roman Abav and Rashim Kappa. They were climbing without Sherpas or supplemental oxygen, a decision driven by their desire to honor the centennial of Russian mountaineering. The trio knew the risks, but they were determined. On October 13th, they left base camp, traversing the treacherous glacier below Dhaulagiri's north face. The icefall here is known for its deadly crevasses and collapsing seracs, but the team navigated through with skill, reaching Camp 1 as night fell. October 14th would be Nadia's last day alive. The climb from Camp 1 was grueling, with the ridge narrowing and steepening as they ascended. Nadia, usually fast and confident, fell behind her partners. Alone and exposed, she battled the cold, thin air. Hours later, Roman and Rashim arrived at Camp 2, breathless but intact. There was no sign of Nadia. They waited, hoping she'd appear, but as minutes turned into an hour, dread settled in. Unable to ignore the growing fear, the 2 men decided to descend and search for her. As they made their way down the steep, icy ridge, they noticed something half buried in the snow, a colorful hiking pole sticking up like a grave marker. It was Nadia's. The realization hit them like a punch to the gut. They moved closer, And what they saw next confirmed their worst fears. A faint slide mark in the snow, a trail that led down the face of the mountain and vanished into a sea of jagged seracs and deep crevasses. Clouds were rolling in fast, and they knew they had little time. They rushed back to base camp, arriving just as darkness swallowed the mountain. The following morning, a rescue helicopter searched the fall zones and avalanche chutes, but there was no sign of Nadia. The crew eventually spotted something strange, a shape wedged deep in a massive crevasse. It didn't take long to realize it was her body, buried beneath tons of ice. Nadia's tragic end sent shockwaves through the mountaineering world. To her fellow climbers, she wasn't just a partner, she was an icon, someone whose love for the unknown pushed her to heights most of us could never imagine. The risks she took lifted her higher than any summit. But on that icy ridge of Dhaulagiri, the mountain had the final word. In October 2023, Nadia became yet another name on the list of climbers who never made it back. Her story is one of ambition, courage, and a haunting reminder that the mountains we climb, no matter how familiar, always hold the power to take everything from us. The question now lingers. Was it the cold, the exhaustion, or simply a slip that sealed her fate? We'll never know, but her legacy remains etched into the icy face of Dhaulagiri, an eternal testament to the price of greatness.